racing at Brands Hatch. We are back on the championship trail because this weekend the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship moves to Snetterton. The 300 lap is the one that we're going to be using. Qualifying coming up very shortly. Ash Sutton has the best qualifying time around here. He's the lap record holder as well. He's the only driver this year to have won more than once as well. But he is not, of course, as the championship leader, blessed with boost. He's chased in the championship by Tom Ingram with Jake Hill third. Tom Chilton is fourth ahead of Adam Morgan. Then Dan Rowbottom, Dan Camish seventh, and Chris Smiley comes next. So, our third qualifying session of the season. It's about to get underway. They've had the two free practice periods already, the first of which started damp and dried out, so the teams didn't really learn a great deal in that. The second one was dry, it was quicker, and it's from that we therefore determine the two groups going into this qualifying session. Usual format, split the two groups for Q1. Fastest six from each go into Q2, fastest six from that into Q3 to determine the front of the grid. It is going to be really interesting indeed, especially to see how those with limited allocation of boost are able to fare around a lap that is very nearly 3 miles in length. So, qualifying coming up very shortly. Earlier on in the day, however, after FP2, Tim Harvey and Louise Goodman took their traditional stroll down the pit lane.
Well, as we watch Dick Bennett's almost being run over by his own car. An opportunity for us, Tim, to just quickly reflect on what an amazing weekend it was for them last time out at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, a massive turnaround. I genuinely felt that it was going to take them maybe 2 or 3 meetings to turn around the handling problems that they suffered with the BMWs at the start of the year at Donington. But wow, they got on top of it super quick. They knew exactly what the problem was. Maybe you could say if they'd done some winter testing, they'd have found that a bit earlier, but they were absolutely back on the pace at Brands, a circuit that did suit them. But they've turned it around and Jake's back in the championship hunt.
Well, we're here at Snetterton, another circuit that suits them. I think it's 8 wins over the last 6 years. Jake got the 2 wins last year, so they should be going well this weekend too.
Yeah, it's very much a rear-wheel drive circuit because of the traction coming off all these slow corners. But it's so much going to come down to the boost, the weather a little bit as well, because the soft tyre is the primary tyre here this weekend for 2 races. Last year, you'll remember, they had to run all 3 compounds, but the soft tyre really suits the BMW, especially when it's hot like it was at Brands, so they'll be hoping it heats up.
For me, tyres, yep, super important, but it's the human interest stories, and we've got one standing here. Let's grab him in, actually. The human interest stories in terms of drivers. Daryl, when he knows what he's doing, don't worry. Oh, bless him. Were you helping out there with a pair of... Oh, spanners in your hands. I was just saying, for me, it's the human interest stories of the British Touring Car Championship, which I love. And seeing, obviously, Charles as well, but you getting your first win last time out at Brands. How special was that moment for you?
I think winning in any form of motorsport is an awesome feeling, but to do it in the BTCC, the support is it's like no other championship. It's an amazing feeling, and to do it on my 50th race, it makes it even more special.
And to do it the race before you come here to Snetterton, which is your home track as well. What's it like driving out around here? Because it's a bit of an amphitheatre, isn't it? Loads of fan support.
Yeah, it's my local circuit, so it's quite important. I've got some family and friends and some sponsors coming this weekend, so hopefully we can be up there again and try have a repeat of Brands. But it was just an honour to be a part of WSR's history-making weekend. Does
it put a little bit more pressure on now that you've done it? Are you thinking, OK, I need to go out there and do it again?
I want to win every single race, but this championship's so tough, so it's going to be difficult to repeat, but that is the aim, just still flat out, and hopefully we can have another one soon.
Yeah.
Darryl, coming to Snetterton, a circuit that BMWs have gone very strongly at, you must be full of confidence. You've got lots of boost available to you for qualifying. I'm sure you've been practicing in free practice too, where best to use it. How's it feeling?
Yeah, I got full deploy, so that gives me the confidence going into qualifying and the race weekend. Jake went really well here last year. I think he broke the record for longest margin of a touring car win. So the BMWs are strong around here. Let's hope they're strong this year, and fingers crossed we can do a repeat of Brands.
Fantastic. Good luck.
Good stuff. Hope it goes well. Let's take a wander down.
He's a lot more confident now, isn't he? It's great to see. That you asked that question about winning your first race.
Yeah.
It gives you confidence. You know you've done it. You've got that little monkey off your back. You're a touring car winner. And now you can just press on and do each weekend as best you can. I think he'll thrive from now. We've known he's been quick all the time, but there's always been that little bit of desperation perhaps. Now he's got a win under his belt. I think he'll calm down. He'll be all the better for it.
Well, I think what we're going to be looking at this weekend is like the BMWs are coming in here with the heads held high. Who is going to be able to beat them? Here we are outside Napa.
Here's a man that definitely could. Has joined.
Come on out and join us.
Dan out here.
Come and dive in the middle here, Dan.
You're right, Dan.
How are we doing?
Well, he says you're a man who definitely could beat the BMWs.
I'd like to think so, but I wasn't thinking that after the first 5 laps this morning when Hill passed me like I was in a different formula. I was like, oh wow, that's very fast. Yeah, obviously a bit of a change in the day now. We've gone from quite a wet circuit to a dry one. Quali, I imagine, is going to stay dry. At least that's what the experts tell me. So yeah, we'll see what we can do this afternoon.
Well, every downside has an upside, and the downside of Brands Hatch, we won't talk about that, but the downside of Brands is you come in with 13 seconds of boost at the circuit that most needs boost for qualifying. You've already had one pole this weekend, so you must be confident for Quali to start the meeting off.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. There's a downside, but the upside is that I get to chase for a little while, and it's very close in that sort of chasing pack behind the top three. It'd be nice, if we could do a good job in qualifying. I think we can. I think we've got a very fast car. I feel in a good place. I think we also find a bit more in qualifying than some. I've noticed that so far this year. Both at Donington, didn't really think I was in the running. Got pole. Same at Brands, you think, I'm not sure we're quite there. Suddenly we're fifth, only a couple of attempts off, and I think we step a bit more than some. So if we can make that same step today and I can do my bit, I see no reason why we can't be somewhere near the front row.
When you say we, is that as in you find a little bit more time in the car, or you personally
it's
just
the racing
managed to
driver,
step it up?
we, not me.
Well, exactly.
It's a combination. I think there's a little bit in every aspect of it. I find a little bit more when the pressure's on, and I think the team eke out that last little bit more. And I think it all comes together, and we just, I think we do perform quite well when the pressure's on. I think Tim will vouch for that. The number of Porsche races he's watched me in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this afternoon. I mean, I always enjoy qualifying, I tell you that. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Good luck. Hope it goes well.
Best of luck.
And it's coming up pretty shortly, so I'll hand straight back to David.
Louise, thanks very much. Yeah, it is going to be a really interesting qualifying session. The teams are getting themselves ready down in the pit lane. We start, of course, with everything divided into these two groups. Championship leader Ash Sutton is going to be up against it, though, because he will have just 1 second of boost per lap. And as Tim has made the point, but it's worth echoing, this is a circuit around which you need as much power as possible. 3 miles in length. It's very nearly like having Donington and the Brands Indy circuit combined for the lap length. So it is going to be really tough for those on that limited allocation of boost. So picking somebody for pole position this week is going to be well nigh impossible.
It is actually, but you'd have to favour those quick cars with quick drivers with a lot of boost. So I picked out Camish there in the pre-show bit, but also people like Rainford in the BMW should be a very good. De Leon as well. There are so many possibilities. David, what's your possibility?
I would still lean towards Dan Camish, because we know that he qualifies well, we know that he's quick, but because of the bad luck he's had, he comes here with, as you made the point, a decent amount of boost. So
the shock for everybody was Tom Ingram going so quickly with only 1 second of boost to use. Although we don't know in that session whether he was using more than that, just as a trial for the racing.
Yeah, Tom Ingram was fastest in the drier of the 2 sessions, the second free practice session. So Tom Ingram, who's got these 3 seconds of boost for qualifying, 5 seconds for Jake Hill, just 1 for Ash Sutton, 7 for Tom Chilton, 9 for Adam Morgan, 11 for Dan Rowbottom, and then 13 for Dan Camish. Everybody else on 15. And although it's a flat lap, it is a long lap.
It's a long lap, so easy to deploy all of that 15 seconds. And unlike Brands, you can deploy it when the steering wheel is straight. So for the front-wheel drive cars, you're not putting extra wear and tear on the front tyres. So it's a very easy one to use that power. There's some uphill sections, particularly after the last corner. So a really good place to use the boost.
There is another reason for putting some money on Dan Camish, and that is that he does lead the Goodyear Wingfoot Award based on qualifying performances. Now let's have a look at who is going to be in this first group. Tom Ingram, Mikey Doble, Adam Morgan, Gordon Shedden, 7th in FP2, Aaron Taylor-Smith, Dan Rowbottom, Ash Sutton, Daryl De Leon, then Josh Cook, Matt Hall, newcomer Ryan Bensley, we'll come to Ryan in a moment, Stephen Jelly and Nick Halstead. Why did I sort of labour the point about Gordon Shedden? Well, he and the other Toyota drivers were really struggling at Brands Hatch. They've tried a lot of new things going into FP2, and for Gordon, certainly it seems to have worked well. There is Ryan Bensley, who has done great things in things like Hot Hatch, Stock Hatch Championships. He's raced in the TCR UK Touring Car Championship, and the very rapid mortgage advisor now turns his attention to a weekend of touring car racing. Sitting in for Michael Creeks, Ryan has always wanted to be on a BTCC grid, and he's not disgraced himself so far.
No, and a local man from Norwich, that's half the point. He wanted to fulfil his touring car ambitions at his local circuit, but this man is no slouch, believe me, a front runner in TCR. And although TCR cars look similar, they're very different cars to drive, but he was straight away on with it. Unfortunately, the first session was wet, so didn't learn much, but he was straight on it and thoroughly enjoying it, although he did make the point to me that this feels very different to a TCR car, and I'm sure it does.
But every lap he does is all valuable learning experience. So let's see then which of the 6 that are going to go through from this 13-strong part. This is the busiest the track is, of course, with the 25-strong entry that we have this weekend. There's Dan Rowbottom ahead of his teammate Ash Sutton, who you will notice is retaining that livery that we thought was going to be a one-off for Brands Hatch, but it's going to carry on for a few more events yet, really by popular demand. The fans liked it.
The fans liked it, and apparently the Americans liked it as well. I.e. Napa, the host or the head office in America, liked it and took some interest in it and asked them to continue with it. So that's good news. Now everybody on some nice grippy new soft tyres. Remember last year the the drivers had to use one of each compound in each race, so that meant they actually qualified on the medium tyre. So we expect the qualifying record to be beaten today, and drivers will certainly be enjoying the grip of the soft tyres.
So Daryl De Leon making his way around Coram down towards the completion of the lap. The BMW winner, of course, as you were hearing, at Brands Hatch. A very happy man, a very confident man now. Front-wheel drive cars you can anticipate to do their tyre cross, the rear-wheel drive cars to stay out. But Daryl De Leon accelerating his way now up towards the timing line in the almost anonymous BMW with the very white livery on it, but he goes over the timing line, still warming up the tyres. And remember, we've only got 10 minutes. I know we say this in every qualifying session, but the time flies by.
Yeah, and they'll get very few laps here because of the length of the lap. They get very short amount of time. Enough for a few flyers, but yeah, the BMW is able to stay out. The front-wheel drive car's literally just doing an out and an in because it is a long enough lap to get those front tyres that they're warming up for the rear nice and warm.
The other element about all of this, length of lap, number of laps in 10 minutes, you don't want to throw them away by track limit offences either.
No, well, we'll get on to that.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
I noticed we actually had track limit offences in our recent F4 race. Now, when the F4s are breaking track limits, you know that it's carte blanche for touring cars. So I dread to think what's going to happen.
We'll keep you posted of the lap times that disappear. Back on track then goes the car of Tom Ingram, fastest in FP2, the Hyundai now on track. So as he rejoins, virtually all the front-wheel drive cars have pitted, and we're already down to 6 minutes and change on the clock. Daryl De Leon then working his way through the infield, but at this point, of course, although he will be offering up a target time, we know there is more to come from him.
Yeah, we really didn't learn a lot from free practice because the first session was wet, and the second session a lot of cars just stayed on their used carryover tyres from the first 2 races. We really didn't see everyone's ultimate pace, so we're going into this session a little bit unknown.
So on to Bentley Straight, through Brundle and Nelson the S's, then out of Bombhole, and speed building up towards Coram. So Daryl De Leon at the moment with the road to himself. He's offering up the target sector times. Aaron Taylor-Smith in his Toyota Gazoo Racing UK Corolla on track now. 5.5 minutes on the clock, so it's going to be a mad scramble for everybody to get in a couple of flyers towards the very end. So Daryl De Leon's opening salvo, if you like, the target time, and he will no doubt improve it anyway, is a 2 minutes 1.437. Well, Tom Ingram did a 1:54.5 in FP2, so we know he's a long way off.
Yeah, his lights were turned on that lap, so he's starting his first real flyer now.
Exactly. Max Hall, who we understand has kissed and made up with Dexter Patterson after their little bit of pushing and shoving in the gravel trap at Brands Hatch, they sat Max down and said, right, have a look at your onboard and have a look at these pictures, and a clearer picture emerged. So they're best of friends again, apparently, and there is Ryan Bensley's green Hyundai, keeping out of everybody's way. He's fresh out of the pit lane, doesn't want to impede anybody, but he's got to claim a line for a corner eventually, going there up towards Hamilton. Josh Cook in the background. This is Daryl de Leon. Now that he is on a proper flying lap, comes with 4.5 minutes just over on the clock out of Agostini, and now he's onto the power, wriggling his way through the infield. But he would like all of those drivers ahead to speed up. The last thing he needs at the end of the flying lap is to encounter traffic.
Yeah, that's the problem when you stay out in the front-wheel drive car. You end up catching up all of the slow front-wheel drive cars that just come out of the pits. But hopefully they'll clear the way for him.
So Daryl de Leon then going better in the sectors, as you would anticipate, because he's the only driver really on a run at the moment. And 4 minutes remain as he comes then down towards the S's. You can see in the background, jinking around left and right, the Napa Racing Cataclean Ford of Dan Rowbottom that is getting its tyres up to temperature. Now, Tom Ingram goes faster than anybody in the first sector. So Daryl de Leon is going to improve, but this is going to be the next man to watch afterwards, because Tom Ingram has got more of the lap to go, but Daryl de Leon is being bettered in sectors by Tom Ingram, and even better still is Ash Sutton, who's now done the absolute best in sector 1. Right, up towards the line. Let's get Daryl de Leon over the timing line first up with 3.5 minutes on the clock. He at the moment is the only driver with a representative time, and we know he can go much, much faster than that as he comes through now, and he does a 1:56.004. So Daryl de Leon then is the fastest for now. This is Tom Ingram at the end of Bentley Straight.
Yeah, watch him as he comes down towards the S's, braking on the turn, really difficult. That's why you see the car just hopping, skipping, and a little bit of a lock-up, but he absolutely was inch perfect through there.
Absolute best in the middle sector, Ash Sutton. Absolute best sector 1, personal best sector 2. Sutton has used the 1 second of boost available to him. Ingram has got 3 seconds, remember, over the course of each lap as he comes then now down through the completion of the lap. That is Sutton working his way now into bomb hole. This is Ingram up to the line. He's got to try to beat a 1:56.004. It is looking good for him as Tom Ingram comes now across the line to go fastest, a 1:54.477. Best lap of the day.
That is a quick lap. That's a second underneath the previous qualifying record. Yes, the cars are lighter. Sutton comes across second. He does a 1:54.6.
And with only 1 second of boost available to him, that is impressive stuff. De Leon is third. Everybody else yet to put a proper lap time on the board. Adam Morgan now goes third on a 55.3. Aaron Taylor-Smith goes fourth on a 55.7. So Daryl de Leon, with 2 minutes to go, now need to get a bit of a wriggle on. But remember, 13 drivers are on track, only 6 progress. This is Josh Cook.
Yeah, he should be capable of going through in the top 6, but we haven't seen the sort of pace from Josh Cook and the one returning, remember, motorsport team that we expected prior to the season.
Yeah, Stephen Jelly, forgive me, he's of course readapting to front-wheel drive machinery. Nick Halstead is ahead of him. Josh Cook now gets into the top 6, he goes fourth. Jelly uses all of his boost on the run up towards the line. He'll squeeze one more out of it. People coming across the line now are onto their last lap. There's less than a lap time left in the session. Jelly on that lap was 8th. That's Daryl de Leon who goes through 7th, even though he's just improved. Rowbottom goes by, he's 5th now. So Ingram, Sutton, Doble, Cook, Rowbottom, Morgan are the 6 that will progress provisionally. And Gordon Shedden has yet to do a proper lap time. He's 13th.
Yeah, Mikey Doble, another one that was very quick in free practice to the drier session. And with that M Sport engine in that Vauxhall, he was a real potential for a front of the grid qualifying position.
Now Ingram has done another absolute best in sector 1. Daryl de Leon is on his last lap of qualifying 1 and in the first sector is down. So Daryl de Leon at the minute, 7th in the times. It's not looking all that promising, strangely. Ingram up to the line. Is he going to go quicker again? He goes through. The lap is a 54.417. So he's gone faster still. He's 0.187 up the road from Ash Sutton. That's Daryl de Leon down in sector 1. And Sutton now is fastest as he goes across the line, a 1:54.415. He's 0.02 of a second quicker than Tom Ingram.
Yeah, the irony is that these two are the two with the least amount of boost,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Sutton with just 1 second, Ingram with 3 seconds. It just shows that when you have a good car-driver combination, they really are at the height of their game and can overcome almost anything. Yeah, I said that was a second. I meant a 10th quicker than the pole record so far, so 10th quicker.
Checkered flag out. Aaron Taylor-Smith, Daryl De Leon, Gordon Shedden, Stephen Jelly, Max Hall, Nick Halstead, Ryan Bensley. The driver's the wrong side of the cut. Slide there from Daryl De Leon as he comes then now down to the end of the lap. That is Stephen Jelly ahead of him. So let's see now whether that top 6 is going to be shuffled. First of all, Daryl De Leon, 8th now, comes up towards the timing line, goes through and up to 7th, but he does not progress. He misses out. Stephen Jelly has gone by, and he is 11th. And has just had a lap time taken off him for track limit offences. This is Aaron Taylor-Smith, looking spectacular, but he's sector 1 time a fraction slower than previously.
Yeah, Aaron Taylor-Smith outside at the moment in 8th place, so he's going to need an awfully good second half of the lap, isn't he, to get into the top 6, which at the moment is Sutton, Ingram, Doble, Rowbottom, Cook and Morgan, who have mostly all taken the checker flag already. Here comes Aaron Taylor-Smith down to the end of the straight, and behind him coming into focus, I believe that's going to be Shedden. It is the number 52, Gordon Shedden, the man with the most number of wins at this Snetterton circuit coming into this meeting.
And an improver in sector 1, but a little bit down in sector 2, heading now then up towards the completion of the lap. So Gordon Shedden looks rapid, but is it rapid enough? Remember, he's 9th, so he's desperately trying to find a way into that top 6th. The team has been looking at what to do to improve the Carson's Brands hatch, and during the course of the day, big frustration that the first session was damp and therefore they couldn't try the things they wanted to do. Lock up there as he comes towards the end of the lap. So Gordon Shedden now accelerates towards the timing line. His best is a 55.8. He needs to find a 55.3 to get into the next part of qualifying. He might just do it. He comes across the line. It is a 55.499. Gordon Shedden, 8th fastest. That will be a disappointment.
Big disappointment. So he's not going to make it into the top 6. That remains unchanged, with Sutton, Ingram, Doble, Rowbottom, Cook and Morgan making it through.
So Ash Sutton then it is at the moment who's the fastest. You're looking at Nick Halstead here making his way up towards the line, and that is Gordon Shedden then 8th, so he takes no further part in qualifying and we'll have a lot of work to do when we get into race 1. Let's just check the order. Ash Sutton then it is who is fastest in Q1, Group 1. So Ash Sutton will go through, as will Tom Ingram, who is 2nd, 2,000 shy. Mikey Doble, 3rd. Dan Rowbottom is 4th. Josh Cook, 5th. Adam Morgan is 6th. They will be joined by the top 6 out of the next group. Daryl De Leon misses out, so does Gordon Shedden, so does Aaron Taylor-Smith and Matt Hall. Stephen Jelly, we lose. Nick Halstead goes, and Ryan Bensley likewise in his first touring car qualifying session. So those drivers then, in some cases, work out what they need to do for Q2. In others, they stomp away and look at data and shout and curse. But the other drivers that are in the second group are now getting ready to go, which will include, for example, Charles Rainford, which will include Nicholas Hamilton, which will include Dan Lloyd, who's going to be one to watch. He said at the end of FP2 that he said that was a genuine second fastest. He said there was more in the tank, so he's one to watch. He's going to be joined in this group by Dan Camish, Jake Hill, Chris Smiley, James Dorlin, Tom Chilton, Ronan Pearson, Charles Rainford, Sam Osborne, Aidan Moffat, Dexter Patterson and Nicholas Hamilton. Now, we know that Aidan Moffat always races better than he qualifies. Charles Rainford, they're quite a long way down in FP2.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet of the pace of the BMWs. We haven't seen it. There was a little bit of head scratching going on in the West Surrey pit after free practice 2. As I said, I don't know what tyres they ran, whether they just ran carryovers and didn't run new, but De Leon wasn't especially pacey in Group 1, so we'll see what happens. Based on the fact that Ash Sutton set the fastest lap in that group with only 1 second, we'll see what Sutton could do. Losing the pits with some reaction after Group 1.
Yeah, down here with Daryl De Leon, who said to me earlier on, just when we spoke earlier on before qualifying, how tough this championship was. You've just reminded yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, all I know is that I got knocked out P7. It's not ideal qualifying, but yeah, just got to see what went wrong and where we can
Do you know where the time got away from you there? I mean, we're talking fractions here, aren't we?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I thought it was a pretty good lap, but yeah, we'll see.
Oh, well, never mind. I'm sure you'll make up for it tomorrow. See you out there. Back to you guys.
Green flag wave then. So the second group now scramble out on track, and the pit lane starts to get a little bit quieter. As I say, Sam engineers now start to do what they need to do for Q2. Other cars will be taken away, and Tom Chilton heads the pack out on track from Jake Hill. Then you've got Aidan Moffat, Charles Rainford, Dan Camish, who will certainly be one to watch, and the rest of the pack streams out behind. This is Dan Camish's view as he joins the circuit then. And we can anticipate, as we saw in the first group, front-wheel drive cars to come in for that tyre cross at the end of this first lap out of the pits.
Yeah, exactly the same as the first group. Front-wheel drive cars will do one out lap and into the pits, diagonal across the tyres, so the front left will go on the rear right, and controversial, and the other way around for the front right going on the left rear, and then they'll have some nice warmer rears when they go back out to start their laps.
Right, there is then the view coming out of turn 3 down towards Agostini. That is Dan Camish getting the warmth into the rubber, and as we know, he is ahead in the Goodyear Wingfoot Award, which is based on points scored across the qualifying sessions. In other words, he is a good qualifier. One of the reasons for that is he's had a tough season, so he always arrives with quite a lot of boost, which helps. So it's a double-edged sword. Yeah,
you're right. Well, in fairness to Dan, of course, he set the pole time at Donington when everybody had the same amount.
True,
that was the real bragging rights. But I was saying just at the end of that, before we cut to Lou, you know, if Ash Sutton can set the fastest time in the first group with only 1 second, what can Camish do with 13? Theoretically, he ought to be quicker. And he's a charged up Camish as well at the moment. He's fired up, and that always makes for a fast driver.
As you say, the BMW pace will be interesting. You've got 3 of them here to compare, whereas Darrell De Leon a bit mystified as to why he wasn't any faster in that earlier group.
Yeah, well, if the others are all the same sort of speed, we'll know it's a BMW issue and not a driver issue. But as I said, we weren't sure after free practice what their real pace was.
Sam Osborne qualified well at Brands Hatch 2 weeks ago. Very different type of lap, though, here, as he turns his way now up from Bombhole, now on towards Coram. Everybody building up to pace. That is Ronan Pearson, now officially part of Rob Huff's management stable. So the business that Rob has with Will Fuchs, taking on touring car and GT drivers. And we know that Ronan is good, so his career is set to be looked after by those with experience. This is Chris Smiley's view in the Restart Racing Hyundai, and like all the front-wheel drive drivers, he heads for the pit lane to do that tyre cross. He's had a very good season thus far in the Independent Championship, but he and teammate Dan Lloyd are after overall results and wins as well.
Yeah, Ronan Pearson saying that Rob Huff was one of his childhood heroes in touring cars, and it was a bit odd for Rob Huff to be carrying his helmet in for him as they walked into Brands Hatch and now advising him. But that's the man, Rob Huff, who won here last year on his return to Snetterton 20 years after his previous win. On that day we had a Toyota 123.
Surely touring car drivers say that their hero was Tim Harvey.
Oh, the best ones do. The best ones do. Yeah, just like the best would-be commentators say that their hero is David Addison.
Something like that, yeah. Jake Hill, in the meantime, who probably says his hero is his father, who used to race, comes now through the
No, his hero is definitely Tim Harvey.
Oh, is it? Right, yes, okay. Yeah, that's why he's a champion.
Taught him everything he knows, actually, from a boy up in Kent. Anyway, let's get back to the action on track, shall we, David? And the BMWs, a lot of warming up. The temperature not as high as it was at Brands Hatch, certainly. So a lot more work being put into getting those Goodyear tyres, the soft compound tyre, up to temperature.
Right, so is this going to be a Ford or a Hyundai session, bearing in mind that you had Sutton from England in the first group? You've got Hyundais, of course, run by different teams in this. You've got Restart as well as the Accelerate Team Virtue cars. So Jake Hill up towards the end of the lap now pulls the pin, accelerates up towards the timing line, and as he does so, we are almost at that halfway point. 5.5 minutes on the clock as he comes through. Charles Rainford looking not necessarily rapid in the sectors, but quicker than those around him, because the BMWs are those offering up sort of notional fast times. Charles Rainford does a 2 minutes 1.2, Jake Hill does a 2 minutes 1.0, to be quicker. But at this point, it doesn't really matter because we know they can go 5-6 seconds faster than that.
Yeah, I thought Charles Rainford might have stayed a little bit closer to Jake Hill to get a nice little toe off him. He's pretty close. Maybe they haven't started an all-out lap, but it would be a real good pace setter for him to just sit behind him, the odd sort of 75 yards behind, get a nice toe. There's two very long straights here, and it would be an advantage.
There is Ronan Pearson, Brands Hatch winner last year in his Hyundai. There is one of the Hyundais coming in the hands of Tom Chilton from Bombhole on now to Coram. Charles Rainford has gone better than Jake Hill in the first sector. He's done the absolute best, so he's gone slightly faster than Jake, irrespective of the lack of a toe. Aidan Moffat is pushing on as well. This is Tom Chilton heading up towards the line. So the Donington Race 3 winner breaks the beam and goes now on to a proper flying lap, but was looking good in the last sector of the previous one. So the Hyundai, a rapid car, we know that. He's on to a push lap. 4 minutes on the clock. Jake Hill heading down Bentley Straight, and again, Charles Rainford is faster in sector 1.
Yeah, 36.1 for the first sector, and a lock up in front from Hill. That's may have flat spotted a tyre. He's even gone off the road. This is a little bit of a bad start to the qualifying session for Hill indeed. He's going to have to clean those tyres up. He hasn't got time really to change them and get back out again, so he's going to have to clean them up and hopefully get a couple of flying laps, or at least one at the end of the session.
Right, so that gives Charles Rainford then the opportunity to go fastest. Jake Hill will be very cross with himself for making that mistake with so little time remaining, 3.5 minutes, and what damage that has done to the tyre possibly as well. Over the line goes Rainford. Let's see what he can offer up. It is a 1:55.252. 1:55.252 is the target, and he's had that lap taken off him for track limit offences. And there, going through, is Dan Camish. So Charles Rainford briefly at the top, but not anymore. It was turn 7 that did for him. And Aidan Moffat is now the fastest, 1:56.035. But this is an order that's going to shuffle.
Yeah, that's exit of the S's where Rainford went off. And it just shows the fact that the BMs are locking up their fronts, that they're struggling to get that temperature just right. Chilton pushing the limits at the exit of the bomb hole of track limits into this really tricky Coram curve where you turn in flat, but then the decreasing radius means you're braking all the way around. A bit too much curb on the inside there. But up to the line he comes. Time for a couple more flying laps indeed. This lap will put Chilton quickest on a 56.2. 55.2 and a 54.7 for Camish. Puts him, that's more like it.
And Dan Lloyd is flying look as well, because he's done an absolute best in sector 1. So Dan Lloyd quicker than anybody in the first sector, personal best in the second. We've got 2 minutes on the clock. Camish, Chilton, Dorlin, Moffat, Pearson, Hill is the order. That changes again because now Dexter Patterson goes fourth in the unlimited Cupra. What can Dan Lloyd do, having been rapid early on in the day? He's about to come up towards the timing line now, and he goes through second fastest. Dan Lloyd does a 54.9.193 back from Dan Camish. Now Jake Hill is relying on a 2 minutes 1, but he must go faster this time around. Ronan Pearson's lap has been taken off him for track limit offences in the Toyota.
Camish is even quicker, absolute best in first sector of this next lap.
And this is Jake Hill then coming out of turn 12 up towards the timing line. He's got Aidan Moffat ahead of him. He's got the Cupra of Dexter Patterson behind. And so as Jake Hill comes now towards the line, is he going to get into the top 6? The answer is no. He's still 9th. He's got 1:20 to go. He's got one more shot.
Exactly. This is his last lap. It's do or die on this lap for Jake Hill. Let's see if we can follow him round and see what he does.
Dan Camish then is the fastest from Chris Smiley, from Dan Lloyd 3rd, Charles Rainford 4th, Tom Chilton 5th, James Dorlin is 6th. Those are the 6 provisionally that can get through. No lap time at the moment for Ronan Pearson because his lap was taken off him for track limit offences, so he's trying to do something magical at the end of the session as well. Into the last minute then as you look at the current driver who is 7th, and that's Aidan Moffat.
Yeah, trying to get those BMWs at the moment. We haven't got, we've got Charles Rainford in 4th. Yeah. The only BMW through at the moment.
And Moffat looks like he's backed out of this lap. Jake Hill presses on here, coming up now towards turn 5.
You're right, Moffat has backed out of it, so he won't get through. He is in a position to give his teammate Jake Hill a lovely tow down this back straight, though, if he wants to, if he's minded to.
Now, Sam Osborne, who is 12th, has done the absolute best in Sector 2. James Dorlin's Toyota has gone up to third fastest, which is impressive stuff. And this is Charles Rainford then working his way up through the S's. Can Dan Lloyd squeeze one more lap out of this? It's going to be touch and go, but he will just get through with a second to spare.
And Osborne, I think, coming across the line with the flag going out, and Osborne is eighth, doesn't make it.
And took the flag, so that was his last shot. Chris Smiley behind. Where is he? Second fastest, so Chris Smiley goes through provisionally, depending on what anybody else can do at the very end. So at the moment, Jake Hill is the slowest. Ronan Pearson's into the top 10. And did not take the flag, so he's got another shot. Jake Hill, personal best in Sector 1, but down in Sector 2.
Yeah, down, not a personal best, in fact, a good few tenths away from what he should have been. He crosses the line and only goes 10th. Wow.
Right, well, after somebody that won here by a massive margin last year, that's going to be a very, very frustrated Jake Hill 12 months on. That is over the timing line. Nick Hamilton, who will be 12th in the times. James Dorlin, though, currently third. That's a really good effort, and James Dorlin has not yet taken the flag. This is Dan Camish. He's the fastest, and has not taken the flag either.
The team could tell him to back off, though. The team could tell him to come in, park it.
Especially as he's not improving in the sectors anyway.
Yeah, he doesn't. Well, he wants to save tyres anyway, so there's no need for him to. But congrats to the Restart Racing team. Both their cars through. James Dorlin third in this, and Dan Lloyd fourth.
So what can James Dorlin do? Of course, switching from GT racing to touring cars, learning all the time. And at the moment, looking as though he's going to be the sole Toyota driver to get into the next part of qualifying, which, given his illustrious teammates, you might think was a bit of a surprise. But he will take the flag in the pits, therefore buying the team another 2 or 3 minutes worth of time to work before Q2. So James Dorlin third, and the last qualifier is going to be Charles Rainford. So the ones that miss out are Moffat, Osborne, Patterson, Hill, Pearson and Hamilton. So Dan Camish, by 0.238 of a second, will go through. So will Chris Smiley. He is the second fastest driver in the group. James Dorlin, a very good third, ahead of Dan Lloyd. Fifth fastest is Tom Chilton, and sixth, Charles Rainford. So the big talking point, I guess, of that is going to be the demise from qualifying of Jake Hill, only 10th. We can put some of it down to that lock-up and sliding off at the S's, but he wasn't the only one to lock up. Tom Chilton having a big moment as well, coming down towards turn 12 and then clipping the curb, and that put the car up onto two wheels. Tom Chilton did go through, though. He was fifth fastest in the end, and Jake Hill in replay as well had to get the car by the scruff of the neck, tried very, very hard to put a good lap in to get through into the next part of qualifying, but the reigning champion then, having looked so impressive at Brands Hatch, where he took pole position, here gets dumped out in Q1. So these the times at the end of Group 2. Dan Camish fastest by 0.238 of a second from Chris Smiley. James Dorlin third ahead of Dan Lloyd. Tom Chilton fifth and Charles Rainford sixth. We lose Aidan Moffat, we lose Sam Osborne and Dexter Patterson, and Jake Hill also gone. Ronan Pearson and Nick Hamilton. Right, well, we put a bit of smart money on Dan Camish, perhaps justifiably. Another good effort, but you could argue that with the amount of boost he had, it's not a massive surprise.
Well, he's a tenth of a second slower than Ash Sutton went in the sister car, and Ash had, 10 seconds less boost than Dan Camish. So, but it shows that they're going well. The big surprise for me is the lack of pace from the BMWs. Only one of the BMWs going through, and that was only just with Charles Rainford in sixth place, some 0.6 off the pace of Camish. So there he is, and some head scratching for BMW to do, because remember they won 2 races here last year, and starting with the soft tyre here, you'd think they would have had more pace.
Indeed so. Charles Rainford looks pretty happy and is relieved as well to have got through. Now let's have a look from on board the car at Jake Hill's lock-up ahead, going down towards the S's. Scrabbles through the first bit, runs out of road.
Yeah, he locked up the inside front, the left front, and because of that he came off the brakes a little bit and just couldn't slow the car down enough.
Yeah.
Lou's back in the pit lane with some more reaction to that qualifying session.
Well, I'm with the man you've just been looking at, Jake Hill. The guys have just been having a look at your lock-up and obviously the off that you had there. But aside from that, that obviously didn't help matters. But it seems like just the pace isn't there in the car.
Yeah, strange one. I mean, you'd think you bolt brand new soft on compared to what we were on in FP2, and you should go faster. You know, it should be into the 54s pretty comfortably, but not the case. I don't know. Just yeah, it wasn't a perfect lap by me by no means. Small lock up there on that last lap where I was going quite well, and yeah, I don't think that's not the root cause though. You know, I only probably lost a tenth on my delta. It wasn't huge, so yeah, just a lack of pace. Don't really know the option at the moment. Sorry, Lou. Yeah.
Well, let's touch at some straws for you. It's looking like it's going to be a slightly warmer day tomorrow. Do you think that's going to help your cause?
Should do, especially with tyre life. We've seen the front-wheel drive cars, you know, been struggling on this soft tyre in the heat, whereas ours has been fantastic. You know, even when the car wasn't great at Donington, we still had good longevity in the car. So, yeah. Got that to look forward to tomorrow, but we'll regroup. You know, it's annoying, of course it is, especially when the other two are so fast, but we just got to go through it and find a solution.
See you out there.
Thank you.
So disappointed Jake Hill walks away. Charles Rainford carries on the assault then for WSR as we get set for Q2, which will be Ash Sutton, Tom Ingram, Mikey Doble, Dan Rowbottom, Josh Cook, Adam Morgan out of Group 1, Dan Camish, Chris Smiley, James Dorlin, Dan Lloyd, Tom Chilton, Charles Rainford from the second group.
Interesting psychological point though. In that interview he said disappointing when the other two have gone so well. In other words, Ash Sutton and Tom Ingram. At this stage of the year, Jake Hill sees it as a 3-horse race, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he's already thinking championship.
And that's who he sees. Now, he's not alone in thinking. There's plenty of seasoned observers share that view, but it's very early in the year, but he is pacing his performance off what those two are doing.
So Q2 underway. We have 12 cars. We get down to 6, and those 6 will go into the final part of qualifying then. There is Dan Lloyd heading onto the track. Behind him is Mikey Doble. Behind him is Josh Cook. In the One Motorsport Honda Civic, Steve Dudman's team back on the grid this year, and perhaps it's taken a little bit longer than some expected for everything to gel, but there's a bit more optimism this weekend. And of course the next stop is Thruxton, which is always Josh Cook Honda friendly. Chris Smiley then getting the tyres up to temperature. Ash Sutton, I think, was just ducking out of the traffic to try and get himself some clear track space. Doesn't want to be impeded, doesn't want to give anybody a tow. Or is that a problem? Because that car is going very, very slowly, and if it's going to grind to a halt, that's going to bring out a red flag. And now he gets going, so he's bought himself seemingly as much clear track space as he can to get warmth into the rubber.
But don't forget, at the end of free practice 2, that car was towed in as well. There was a problem with that car at the end of free practice, and he was towed in. I wonder if it's an electrical problem, because I don't think he would have done that. He might have done that just to get out of seat, but he could do that when he sits in the pits and they cross the tyres. So I'm just slightly concerned there's an issue with that car.
Right, it didn't reveal itself as far as we could see in Q1, but might be rearing its head now in the second part of qualifying. We'll keep an eye as you look there at Charles Rainford. There is Ash Sutton then, and he is working his way now up towards Bentley Straight, coming up through turn 6 and 7. Tom Ingram, in the meantime, is already storming his way through into Corham Curve, ready to drop down towards turn 12 and think about coming into the pit lane to do that tyre cross. Remember, it's 10 minutes again. The clock is already at 7 3/4 as he comes now onto the pit straight, and the pit lane will beckon for the Hyundai.
I love the way Tom Ingram goes about his business. He gets on with business, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter which the session is, he's always out there pushing hard from the get-go, and I like that attitude. He doesn't sort of play it carefully or try and sort of sandbag. He just gets on with it. On board with Charles Rainford in the West Surrey Racing BMW, still warming his tyres, but he gives us a nice bird's eye view of the track. Some dirt on the exit of Riches there that they're trying to avoid. Coming down to the first hairpin. 2 hairpins here that both have to be negotiated with a late apex. Warming the tyres.
Let's go to Louise quickly in the pit lane. Louise?
Yeah, just had a quick word with the team, and it looks like some kind of electrical issue for Ash. He basically had to do a reset there, so he had to switch it off and switch it on again. So team investigating it at the moment, but yeah, it's not all plain sailing, that's for sure. Ash just pulling into the pits in front of me.
Okay, thanks Louise. So yeah, Ash Sutton with a question mark hanging over that car. Then team goes to work, and an electrical problem is just about the worst you can have. It's so hard to trace.
Well, the problem is 1 minute it's working, 1 minute it isn't. It's very hard to trace a problem when it's actually working. So if it stops continuously, then you can maybe find it, but very hard to find otherwise.
So Charles Rainford is going to offer up the target time. You're looking at Josh Cook in the One Motorsport Independent Class Honda as he comes then now through the infield. Hamilton is turn 5, then the next right, turn 6 Oggies, and then turn 7 of Williams that brings you on to Bentley Straight. The mass exodus of front-wheel drive cars from the pit lane is happening at the moment. We've got just 6 more minutes of Q2 on the clock, and of course then you sort of get this mad scramble of times at the very end. Pressure on at this point.
Yeah, and the two fastest times in the two previous groups are 1:54.4 from Sutton and 1:54.5 from Camish. So you're looking for something in the mid to mid-high 54s to get you through into the final 6.
Dan Camish, who topped his group, getting the warmth into the rubber. Charles Rainford then is going to offer up the first time of the session, but it's going to be north of 2 minutes, so it's a start-up lap. Effectively, he goes by and now puts the lights on. Now he's onto a proper flying lap, and this is going to be the interesting one. Josh Cook, in the meantime, hustles on in the Honda, and of course, on his first lap, he's doing personal bests in sectors. We are at the 5-minute mark, just about. And so now cars crossing the line become interesting. Josh Cook on 2 minutes 4, but we know there's more to come from that. Half the session to go now.
Yeah, probably still be the next lap, which is, although he's pushing on this lap, it'll probably be the next one where the tyres are really in the window for Rainford. Sutton is on his out lap. Remember, he's only just crossed his tyres over, so the fronts on that car were on the rear on the last laps, which is why he's weaving now to get more heat into those, to balance it out against the rear tyres and get the balance of temperature exactly where he wants it. Here comes Cook.
Does indeed then. So Josh does a personal best. Charles Rainford does an absolute best within the first sector. So you've got 12 quick drivers, and we're going to lose half of that number. So it's the real pressure cooker part of qualifying. This perhaps is the most dramatic of the lot. You know that these drivers are good. That's why they're into this group. But to lose half of them means you are fighting for every thousandth of a second.
Yeah, remember we had no Hondas in the championship last year. It's great to see the Hondas back in. I know it's not a manufacturer-assisted team, but it's a great-looking car, that FK8 Honda. And now with the M Sport engine in it, it should be a formidable weapon.
Should indeed. Josh Cook, we know, is very, very quick indeed. Really driving the team forward, but Charles Rainford is going to drive the times forward at the end of this lap. Then he comes down towards turn 12, sets the car up, goes left, and in his first touring car season, stepping from Carrera Cup GB, hasn't done a lot of racing at Snetterton in recent times because the last 2 touring car events were Sprint Challenge, not Carrera Cup, as support races. Charles Rainford goes by, does a 1:55.034, lock up from Cookie down at turn 12 then as the Honda scrabbles its way towards us, but Tom Ingram is doing absolute best in sector 1 and sector 2, so Tom Ingram's lap is going to be a good one. Josh Cook, second at the moment, comes across the timing line and goes fastest on a 54.9, but Ingram looks dynamite.
Oh, how is Ingram doing it? The paddock will be absolutely scratching their heads. This is a power circuit where you can use all of your boost, and with barely 3 seconds, he is still able to go and produce these amazing lap times.
Charles Rainford's lap's been taken off him, track limits, so he's got to go again. Is this Tom Ingram fastest? It is! Tom Ingram does a 1:54.174, 7/10 of a second quicker than Josh Cook.
Wow.
7/10.
And that is something, that is amazing. That is that's 4/10 quicker than he went in the first part of qualifying. That is an absolutely huge lap time.
With only 3 seconds of boost per lap. Dan Lloyd, though, is looking rapid because his Hyundai has done an absolute best in the first sector, a personal best in the second. Remember, though, he's got the full amount of boost here. Lock up there coming into turn 12, so as he accelerates now, 15 seconds a lap. Of course, you could argue he should be going well, but it puts Ingram's efforts into context.
Camish goes third.
And what about Lloyd
goes across the line.
Through now. Dan Lloyd goes 6th.
And Sutton goes second.
Okay, electrical gremlin aside for now then. So Ingram, Sutton, Doble, Camish, Rowbottom, Lloyd are the 6 that will go through at the moment.
Track a little bit quicker, I think, in this session because Sutton is quicker than his time from the first session as well. Doble, a great effort, only 3/10 off Ingram's time. Camish in there as well, and Rowbottom. That's 3 Napa cars at the moment.
Right, the first one that misses out is Tom Chilton. He's 67 thousandths down. So as we look at Chilton now, you can tell that he's really pushing. Behind him also missing out Morgan. Then Cook 9th, Dorlin 10th, Smiley 11th, Rainford 12th. Up to 7th goes Josh Cook as he crosses the line, but that's not good enough. A minute and change on the clock.
Well, Morgan and Chilton in the Vertu Hyundai's well capable of getting in this top 6 if they get everything right.
Thing is, most of the 12 are capable, so that's why all the pressure goes on it. As I say, to lose half of them, we know these are good drivers because they got this far. So Josh Cook up to 7th, but it's not enough. Chilton is then down to 8th, Morgan is down to 9th. And there, Tom Chilton should be able to squeeze one more lap out of the session. Dan Rowbottom has now done an absolute best in the middle sector to go with a personal best in sector 1. So the number 32 Ford is looking good.
What I can tell you is Ingram and Sutton are Camish up to 3rd. Ingram and Sutton can absolutely park their cars up. There's no way they're not going through with those times.
Sutton to Camish, 1,000th of a second between 2nd and 3rd. Over the line goes Tom Chilton, and he's now down to 9th. But Adam Morgan up to 5th fastest. Yeah. He's in.
So we've got another Hyundai in the top 6. And the one on the bubble is Dan Lloyd in the restart Hyundai.
And Dan Camish is being looked at for track limits at turn 7, which is Williams, that puts you on to Bentley Straight. So at the moment Dan Camish is 3rd, checkered flag is out. Josh Cook here is 8th, and he is down in the sector. So I think Josh Cook's session is going to come to an end. Dan Camish has had a lap time disallowed. He falls to 5th. He survives. He's still in.
I was trying to remember what his next best lap time was, but he's still in at 5th, yes. Remember, this is not for grid positions. This is just to get through to the final 6.
Yeah, only grid positions if you're out of that 6. You take the place you get. But for the moment, we've also had a Rowbottom lap taken off him, and he drops to 6th. So he's still in. Josh Cook's going to be out, though, because 2 slower sectors is not a good start to the lap. He goes through. He improved in the last sector, but little good did it do him. So Josh Cook frustrated. Only 8th fastest. Ingram, Sutton, Doble, Camish, Morgan, Rowbottom are the ones that will go through. Sutton, a lap time taken off him, and
doesn't affect
him because it was the one after his best lap. Dan Lloyd here, 7th. He'll be disappointed with that.
Yeah, just missing out. But once again, it's Ingram and Sutton, the 2 with the least amount of boost, but the quickest. Doble, a great effort to get through. Camish, we expected to get through. We know he's got a quicker lap time in him as well. Had one removed. Morgan, a good effort to bump up into that top 6. He was on the bubble before. And Rowbottom making it 3 Napa cars in this group all going through.
So Tom Ingram it is, the fastest, 0.134 of a second being the margin. Sutton 2nd, Doble 3rd, Camish 4th, Morgan 5th, Rowbottom 6th. The front of the grid is going to be slugged out between those 6 in a few minutes' time when we get to the last part of qualifying. Dan Lloyd, I think, will be really disappointed about that. And so too Chris Smiley, who was only 12th in the end. Those that lost out, Dan Lloyd, who was 97 thousandths adrift of a Dan Rowbottom time for 6th. Josh Cook was 8th, Tom Chilton 9th, James Dorlin 10th, well, that's his best qualifying of the year, Charles Rainford 11th, Chris Smiley 12th. So no BMW representation then in the final quick 6. It's going to be Hyundai, Ford, Vauxhall, Ford, Hyundai, Ford, who take the times in order. So Dan Camish, you could argue it would have been better than 4th given the amount of boost that he's got, but to go back to the point, it does put the efforts of Ingram and Sutton really into perspective. Excellent job done. And now we know 7th and back on the grid. It's time to dispute the top 6 places. And if the pressure wasn't on before, it certainly will be now. So this is the order then at the end of Q2. Tom Ingram faster than Ash Sutton by 0.134 of a second. Mikey Doble 3rd ahead of Dan Camish, then Adam Morgan and Dan Rowbottom rounding out the 6 that progress. We lose Dan Lloyd, Josh Cook, Tom Chilton and James Dorlin. Charles Rainford goes, and so too does Chris Smiley. So a few moments for the teams to first of all get the cars back to the pit lane, do any work that they need to, and then we'll be back in business. Louise, though, is being kept busy in the pit lane.
Yeah, I've come down to have a word with Dan Lloyd, who I'm thinking that was a good result. Maybe a little bit frustrating that you didn't quite make it through to the top 6, but that's a good position.
Yeah, getting closer every time. 7th is a good position. The pace was in there in the car. I had a big slide coming back onto the back straight, which definitely cost us. So a little bit of a shame, but still a mega job. You know, every time we're closer, getting in Q3, very, very close now. But after the tough start to the season that we've had, I'll definitely take that.
And it bodes well for tomorrow, for race 1.
Yeah, the pace has been good. You know, it's been good everywhere we've been, but just not rubber the luck on race day. So 7th is, you know, you just hopefully out of the trouble, in the mix. We know there's more in the car, so we know we'll have good race pace. So, yeah, good job by the team. Mistake by me, but overall happy with that.
Good stuff. Fingers crossed for tomorrow, because I know you had lots of bad luck last time out.
Yeah, hopefully not. Cheers.
So Dan Lloyd is going to be near the front of the grid, starting on that 4th row. So our final 10 minutes will be underway very shortly indeed. And after what we've seen so far, the efforts of both Tom Ingram and Ash Sutton with such little boost allowed for them, mighty impressive indeed. The teams are ready then to push the cars onto the fast lane of the pits. And there, Mikey Doble, who just seems to quietly go about the business here. We know he had that pole position 2 years ago at Silverstone, but he's been excellent throughout the qualifying sessions so far this season. The team at Power Max Racing are ready to push the car onto the fast lane, and Mikey Doble should be there or thereabouts come the end.
As always, overachieving, I think. Small team, limited resources, just going about their business with great aplomb and attention to detail, and Mikey is an underrated driver himself. Now joined, of course, by Nick Halstead in the second Power Max car. Nick didn't make it through, unfortunately, past the first group, but it's nice to have 2 cars out there. Barry Plowman talking with Tom Chilton there, just wondering where they lost a bit of time, but I'm sure they'll work it out.
And we know that Tom is always a good racer, so he'll be no doubt with his elbows out tomorrow when we go racing. So that Hyundai parked. All eyes then for Team Virtue goes to Tom Ingram and Adam Morgan, the 2 surviving representatives. You've got 2, I'll tell you a lie, 3 from Napa Racing, and of course 1 from Power Max. Then as the cars now, with the green flag shown, are pulled onto the fast lane of the pits, released. There are the Fords. Ash Sutton, even with that electrical problem, he is still through to the final part of qualifying and still a factor for pole position. Tom Ingram leads them out, Adam Morgan behind him.
Yeah, fortunately not a repeat of the electrical problem during that session. There's Adam Morgan in the blue Draper Tools Hyundai. Run, of course, out of the same stable, Accelerate, as Tom Chilton and Tom Ingram.
Down on the Wilson hairpin, which is turn 2, and speed building at this part of the circuit. So remember, just 10 minutes, clock ticking on down as the cars then now go through turn 3, and there Adam Morgan seems to be a much happier Adam back in a front-wheel drive car, but happier in terms of results, happier in terms of a person in the paddock.
Yeah, it just suits him, doesn't it? I totally agree. I just think he feels naturally more at home. You know, he tried the rear-wheel drive experiment and it didn't really work, first with Sicily, their own team, and then with West Surrey Racing. But he was always a star when he was in that the Mercedes A-Class, and back in a front-wheel drive car, he felt he wanted to give that another try, and it's definitely worked.
Absolutely right. So good character as Adam as well. Good to have him in the championship still, as he comes then now onto Bentley Straight. So getting the tyres up to temperature, up to pressure. What have we got? 8 minutes and a bit still on the clock. So our final quick 6, ready to do battle. Tom Ingram heads the charge down to the chicane, the S's. And of course, we don't have to worry about people staying out because we've only got front-wheel drive cars.
Yes, what we do have to think about now is track limits, because everyone will be pushing the limit, the absolute limit in this session, and it could be decided by who loses a lap time for track limits. At the moment, you'd be hard-pressed to look outside of the Ingram-Sutton combination for pole, certainly. a betting man in the paddock would have picked someone with a bit more boost, someone like maybe Doble or Camish, but those two seem to be the class of the field. Let's see if they can repeat in this session. They've gone quicker in every session so far.
Really impressive effort by both. There is Mikey Doble then, as you say, overachieving in the Powermax Racing Vauxhall Astra. Motor Parts Direct with Powermax Racing to give the team its full title for the year. Ash Sutton into the pit lane as well. So it's a bit like the calm before the storm, this, isn't it?
Yeah.
People trackside have been teased by the cars for that, but they have to stand and wait, and then this mad flurry of times comes at the end.
We might as well just call it a 5-minute qualifying session, mightn't we? Because by the time they get out and do another lap, there'll be about 5 minutes left.
Exactly. So the pressure is on the mechanics as well to do this tyre cross in double quick time. And that is what you can see happening for Ash Sutton at the moment as the tyres are switched around. Dan Rowbottom, Dan Camish going through the same process. Already the Hyundais are back out of the pit lane. Tom Ingram ahead of Adam Morgan there, making their way. You can go across the dotted white line, not across the full white line. Swing to the left-hand side of the road, get the line for the corner of Riches, and then blast away. Rowbottom's good to go there. Sutton behind him, Dan Camish will rejoin, so too will Mikey Doble. Charles Rainford, a very interested spectator in the pit lane, thinking, I want to be part of this.
Yeah, he's so enthusiastic, Charles. He's not going to miss anything. He's soaking in every second of his first year in the BTCC, and that includes watching what these guys, the best guys in this qualifying session so far, are doing.
So there is Dan Rowbottom then up through turn 1 and building up pace, ready to offer up 2 laps worth of times. Ash Sutton is behind him, then Mikey Doble in the queue next. So just the 6 cars on the circuit, and we start looking next time around at sectors to see who is going to be quick across the first 2. The third sector, of course, is the timing line, so as you finish your third sector, you finish your lap. It's piecing it together through sectors 1 and 2 that's the important bit.
Yeah, no rear-wheel drive cars, so they're all on exactly the same pattern. Ingram is the first car on the road, and I pretty much obviously guarantee he's going to be the fastest after the first flying lap. He gets straight on it anyway.
You've done this before, haven't you?
Well, yeah. I was admiring his approach, wasn't I, earlier, and he just sets himself up. He gets a real good feel for the car, even on this outlap. He throws it in the corner and then feels how much grip there is and judges from that how hard to push in the next corner and the next lap. So he'll now be pushing round corner, and he'll know that he's got the tyres in, so he can attack this first lap, and even lock up there at the rear, the unweighted rear, and out he comes, lights on, onto a flyer.
So Tom Ingram then up towards the timing line, and as he breaks the now 4 minutes 41 seconds to go. So not even a 5-minute qualifying session in a sense. It is Adam Morgan behind him. So now they push, and we'll see what times can be offered up as Dan Camish then heads up towards the timing line as well, ready to start his first flying lap of Q3. So Camish goes by, and the Napa Racing Ford driver leading that Goodyear Wingfoot Award. In other words, the championship based on the points scored across qualifying sessions. There is a trophy for each driver that gets a pole position, and that means that you've had one of them go to Dan Camish, one of them go to Jake Hill, who is another driver spectating now.
Nice thing is we can now look at each sector as it comes up and see who goes purple. Well, not surprisingly, it's Ingram at the moment in sector 1. The others still to complete that sector, and Adam Morgan a little bit slower, but Rowbottom, Sutton, Camish and Doble about to go through. Camish goes quicker than Ingram in that first sector. Let's see what Sutton, Rowbottom and Doble do, still to complete that sector.
You're Ash Sutton, you've got 1 second of boost to use in 3 miles. Where do you use it?
I would use it at the start of the lap, coming out of the final corner up the start-finish line, because that's the longest straight from the slowest speed. So therefore, the maximum amount of benefit of a whole second.
Such as it is, yeah. Right, so Ash Sutton on a lap, so too is Tom Ingram. Here he is, coming through bottom hole, goes right, the car drifts through the right-hander into Coram, and wheel lifting on the edge as ever. Tom Ingram, we know, likes an edgy car. Comes through Coram, sets it up then for turn 12, accelerates now up towards the timing line. So this will be the target time. This will be the only lap we've had thus far. Let's see what he can do. Pressure on with just under 3 minutes to go. 54s are good, and Ingram goes through to do a 53.7, 153.780 from Tom Ingram. Adam Morgan's second on a 54.6. There's 9/10 between them already, and then Morgan's lap is taken off him for track limits.
Camish to the line. Let's see what he do. He did the fastest first sector, but not the second. I think he'll go second. He goes quickest, a 53.7.
Sutton's got a problem again. Look, the car is virtually ground to a halt. He's trying to get it going. The worst he can be is 6th here, but Ash Sutton's got a problem as across the line now goes down Rowbottom. He will go 3rd, so Camish, Ingram, Rowbottom. 2 minutes and change on the clock. Mikey Doble goes by. He goes 4th.
Well, I didn't think we'd see times in the mid to high fit, and Camish is still trying to. Sutton's still trying to get that going.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd see times in the 53s, but they are pushing the limits. This is going to be a yellow flag at least.
Session's gone red, so the session is stopped with 1 minute and 51 on the clock. Ash Sutton's car isn't getting going on its own. It won't be allowed into the completion of this part. Now he loses 2 lap times, the best 2 lap times now, for causing the red flag.
He has set 2 laps. He's done 2 laps. The interesting thing is that will they reset the timer with 5 minutes?
Presumably, yes.
Yes. So actually, they'll get more time now when they're on the restart than they had when they went out.
Yeah, it's at the discretion of the clerk of the course. There was 1 minute and 51 on the clock. Just remind me, does Ash Sutton lose the lap times from the part or from the session as a whole?
I think from the part.
Right.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think he will still start 6th.
So the car needs retrieval. I think the race officials have been watching this, giving him time to try and get the car started again, if you like. But it is ground to a halt. So now the problem is, of course, you've got to get everybody in before you can scramble a recovery vehicle. Ash Sutton's car won't take long to get off the circuit. It just requires the track to be clear before you can allow Marshall's trackside to go and get it. He won't take any further part, and then we will await news. So Adam Morgan doesn't have a lap time because the one lap that he did was taken from him, and Ash Sutton doesn't have a lap time because he hasn't done one, and even if he had, then he would have lost it for causing the red flag. So a very, very frustrated Ash Sutton, not in terms of being 6th on the grid, but in terms of not really knowing what the problem is. And now there's going to be a long night ahead of Napa Racing to trace that electrical gremlin.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they've got an idea. Otherwise, they'll be changing wiring looms and everything to try and eradicate it, because, of course, they just can't even test it. There's no way they can test to see where they fit unless they can find a real cause.
There's a recovery vehicle heading to Ash Sutton's car.
Doesn't really need a lift, does it? Just needs a tow. A tow would be enough.
It's nearly on the escape road.
Yeah.
That's the other frustration for race control, that Ash, I think, was trying to keep it going and limp off the circuit, but in the end, it doesn't get that far. So the team's awaiting news. The clock hasn't yet been reset to that 5 minutes, but we are keeping an eye to that.
See that second, I don't know what it is, that 4x4 just to the left, that could actually has a tow rope in the boot. Look, he could just tow it. That would be much quicker than lifting it onto the flatbed.
I thought I saw Ash Sutton though making a sort of
shall
gesture.
I go? That was he was saying to the marshals, do you want me to stay or shall I go? And I think they said you can go, which means they're going to lift it. If they'd said stay, they'd have asked him to jump back in and he could have steered it. Yeah.
So they will lift it out of the way. I think they wanted in Parc Fermé as well because it's in the top 6. So
that's true.
They will possibly want to have a look at the car for technical reasons. So there, with the circuit being cleared, is Dan Camish's car. He's fastest again, so quickest at Donington for pole position, provisionally the fastest right now. And although we're not expecting any more rain, it's still looking a little bit ominous ahead.
He wouldn't mind if it did rain now. No. If the heavens open, quite. Dan wouldn't mind. He would rather not go back out again and have to do it all again or lose rather than just keep the position. The hooks going into the roof hooks that then the bar attaches to. Tony Carosa, I am sure, already poring over some data and thinking what it might be.
Yeah, he's Ash Sutton's engineer, of course. And how about that? For
the wind is strong
creative?
here.
Yeah, it is indeed, yes. Touring car fans are certainly nothing if not creative. And there you can see now the towing bridge going onto the top of the hooks and lifting the car onto the flatbed. So the road is nearly clear. And then Ian Watson, the clerk of the course, will make the call as to what he wants to do next. This is the last activity of the day on track. So in theory, there is the time to give them 5 minutes that the regulations do allow for.
It's all too much for some people, obviously.
Very melodic music he's listening to. It's put him to sleep. Right, there's the Ford then. Off the ground, onto the flatbed. We're nearly with a clear track. The officials rapidly having done this, but you can imagine it's going to be a very cross Ash, who will be very concerned that that car is healthy tomorrow.
I was going to say it could have been worse. If it happened in the very first session he hadn't got going again,
yeah,
he would have made life a lot more difficult for tomorrow. Still
Gale.
being in the top 6 is not too bad. Gives him tyre options as well.
That's true.
For race 1. He could elect to start on his hard set of tyres, try and finish as high as he can, and then he'll have 2 races on the softs. So it gives him some tyre options from there. It's not all is definitely not lost. If you qualify on the front row or 2, you're almost forced into using the soft for race 1, and of course the first 3 will then have to use the hard for race 2. So it does give him options.
So let's quickly go to the pit lane. Louise has more news.
Trying to get through to Louise in the pit lane.
We should be there soon, I'm sure. Ash Sutton's car being retrieved. Then the clock has gone to 0, but not yet been reset at anything, nor have we had a message saying that it won't be resumed. So I think there's a discussion going on between race control and TSL, the timekeeping force, as to exactly what we're going to do next. Now the car needs to be retrieved, and they're going to have they're going to be allowed to do an out lap, a flying lap, and an in lap. So that it's not to a time, but the drivers are going to be allowed, if you like, a one shot, one lap.
Yeah, well, it is a maybe change to 5 minutes. It's not a must-be change, so that's obviously what they've decided to do. But that's not going to be... It means that everyone will get a lap time, because those that... Adam Morgan, for example, who had one disallowed, will get a lap time. But it's going to be hard with just one out and one flyer to noticeably improve. I think Camish and Ingram may be locked in there. There is Dan Camish. I'm sure he's focusing again. What he doesn't want to do is go and commit another track limits infringement. He hasn't so far, but we know that to do that time he will have pushed it as close as you possibly can. Only one tyre stack here on the inside of Hamilton's, which is an MSA regulation. In fairness, it's always been there, and it's not one that drivers tend to hit or crash into, because it's not really an overtaking place into that corner. It's the kink out the back, so even I have no problem with that one, David.
Thank heavens, because the soapbox is getting a bit battered now. The confirmation has come from Craig Smith, who's the chief timekeeper, to say we have zeroed the clock. It is one flying lap allowed. That's it. So it's an out lap, a flyer, and then back in. So we'll know the order while they're completing that in lap, of course, because it can't change. And they'll scramble the cars very shortly, as soon as Ash Sutton's car is off the road. The team's all in radio contact with Ian Watson, who's the clerk of the course, and when Ian says, right, go, they can push the cars back. But it'll be interesting to see if anybody lags back, because there's no time to beat now in terms of getting the car out. You could let 5 go and you'd be the 6th with all of that clear track space. Here we go. The green flag is shown, so the session is back live, and 2, 4 are good to go. We're only going to have 5 cars on the circuit. No Ash Sutton, of course, and yeah, they've all gone as a pack.
They've all gone as a pack, yeah. As you say, there's no clock to wind down, so you could just give yourself some space, do this out lap as you want to do it in terms of pace and build up, but they've all gone out together. There'll be enough room between them, I'm sure, as they start the lap.
Yeah, indeed. Right, so although the clock says 0, the session's not done, we know that Ash Sutton won't be taking any further part, the car having been retrieved, And so now, as the cars come down towards turn 3, Camish, Ingram, Rowbottom, Doble, Morgan have 1 lap. So first time we've been in this situation with a restart to Q3 and the drivers just being allowed the 1 flyer. Going to be interesting to see who can turn it on, and indeed the laps that we are going to get, how they are close or better than what they've done already, how close to the original time they will be.
And it has been confirmed that Sutton only loses the lap time from that session.
Right.
They have got some warmth in these tyres, obviously, already. They won't have crossed them again or done anything like that. They've left them as they were. So it's really just a case of bringing them back up to pressure and temperature, particularly the rears. They won't want to take much out the fronts if they're going to go for another ultimate flyer. The fronts will have only really done 1 lap at speed so far, but they won't want to take anything out of them, but they will want to get the rears up to temperature. That's the bit you really lean on and need to be confident in a front-wheel drive car.
So the weaving goes on. The next time they cross the timing line, it'll be at the start of the lap. The one after that is when we'll get the times confirmed, and then we'll know the order. So again, calm before the storm here.
Yeah, it's all going to happen in 1 lap.
Exactly, and of course on the longest lap of the year. So for the fans' trackside, there's quite a lot of waiting, of course, waiting for the times, waiting for the cars, but it's all going to come in very, very rapid succession each lap time as drivers come across the line. So it'll be one big deep breath coming out of turn 12. Not this time, but next, because now Ingram starts the flying lap. So does Morgan, so does Camish, so does Rowbottom, then Mikey Doble behind. So through they go, and the final flying lap of qualifying is now done.
And we will look for purples to see if anything comes up that's likely to change the positions. Nice position that Morgan's in. Look at that, he's going to get a great tow down 3 straights, up the start-finish line to start the lap, down the Bentley straight, at the back as well, and then again to finish the lap.
Indeed so, as Tom Ingram is the pioneer. He's the one at the front of the queue, punching the hole in the air. There you've got the Dan Rowbottom, Dan Camish, Napa Racing Fords. Not quite close enough, Rowbottom, to get a tow off Morgan, and nobody as yet has improved in Sector 1. So this last lap that they've all been offered might in the end be futile, because on the evidence of the first sector, no improvements are going to come.
Well, it's only Morgan, I think, that could improve, because obviously he had his lap time disallowed.
Doesn't have a lap at all.
He's the one that I think can improve. And he's getting a lovely tow off his teammate.
Yeah, Morgan's the only one that can really shuffle the order, it seems. Ingram doesn't have the lights on.
He's
Morgan
moved
does,
over.
so he's through. Morgan is pushing. Nobody else has their lights on. They're almost like going through the motions.
Yeah, that was just Ingram giving a lovely tow, as I explained to Morgan, because he was the only one that could help. That was really good teamwork.
Yeah. So Morgan is the one that can change the order. We know that Sutton is already set for 6. That's Mikey Doble off the road, so even if you were on a push lap, it ain't going to happen for him now after that. This is Morgan, the car dancing out of turn 13. Up to the end of the lap he comes. So Adam Morgan needs to be in the high 153s to be anywhere near the front of the grid. 52, 53 to the line, 54, 5th. So he stays where he was in the order, but now has a lap time to his name. Everybody else takes the checkered flag. And so Dan Camish takes a 2nd pole position of the season. 2nd on the grid is going to be Tom Ingram. 3rd on the grid, Dan Rowbottom, Mikey Doble. 4th, Adam Morgan. 5th, and Ash Sutton, 6th. And Dan Rowbottom has just had that last lap taken from him for track limits, but it doesn't matter because he's already got a lap time from earlier on. So Dan Cam does it again. Yeah,
a great performance by Dan. This is that would look like a Scandinavian flick there, didn't it? Full-on send into the right-hander at Nelson by Mikey Doble.
Got away with it. Mikey 4th in the end. So Dan Camish with another very, very impressive effort, and the Ford driver then taking an 8th pole position of his career. 2nd of the season as well. Dan Camish fastest by 300ths from Tom Ingram. Dan Rowbottom 3rd, Mikey Doble 4th, Adam Morgan 5th, the only driver being able to benefit from that final lap that the drivers were given, and Ash Sutton, the cause of the red flag, no time, so he is at the bottom of Q3. Dan Camish will make his way to the pit lane through the technical checks, then up to Parc Fermé, and a very good job done by the Ford driver once again. But 300ths, or 31 thousandths if you prefer, is the margin between the two on the front row, and a very happy Napa Racing UK, a second pole of the season. There is Dan Camish on this long in-lap. There are some long laps where there's a sort of cut-through to get you back to the pit lane quicker, like Brands Hatch, for example.
That's
Here, you've
true.
got to do the whole 3 miles.
Yeah, nice gentle in-lap so he can let the ride heights recover. But he'll be delighted with that. And that time is some 7/10 quicker than the previous qualifying record, which was in 23 by Ash Sutton, in fact. That's when the Fords were all conquering, wasn't it? But that was back on the medium time, not the soft. That just shows how quick this year's cars are.
And Dan Camish with a point to prove in a sense, because although he had that pole at Donington, he had some rotten luck. Good race pace, but some bad luck. Bad luck again at Brands Hatch with the mistake that stopped the car in the second race when it looked like he was on for a win. So he wants to bounce back this weekend and get as many points as he can. There's a point for pole position, so he gets that to start the weekend off. And Tom Ingram is going to be second on the grid, having, as ever, given it maximum attack in the Hyundai.
Oh, look at that. It's a great slow-mo, isn't it? Absolutely sending the car into the corner. That's a great slow-mo shot.
Yeah, one of the most dramatic drivers on the grid, of course, Tom Ingram. Dan Rowbottom there making his way to the pit lane. So Camish, Ingram, Robo, the top 3 on the grid. And Dan Camish, even with the crash helmet on, the eyes suggests he's pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I think he's having a conversation with the team and probably a little chuckle.
Adam Morgan's car going through the scales and the ride height checked. Just walking through the shot, Peter Riches, the former technical director, as he lives about a mile down the road. It's a regular haunt for Peter to come back to see his mates in the paddock on the touring car weekend. And they're under Parc Fermé conditions. Adam Morgan's car goes through the technical area and now will make its way up the pit lane. So Adam Morgan released. Phil Danbury, when he's back to you, waves the car out of the flat patch. We have to wait quite a long time, of course, because the top 3 are all at the back of the queue. They let everybody else come in while they're doing that slow in lap. So Louise is poised, but we wait and we wait and we wait. And of course, Murphy's Law, they're all in reverse order anyway. You've got 3, 2 and 1, Rowbottom, Ingram and Camish in the queue. So the roller goes under the front of Rowbottom's Ford that's now put onto the scales. Other cars making their way up the pit lane to the Parc Fermé area.
Well, of course, everybody does a slow in lap, but if you're in the top 3, you do an even slower in lap just to make sure everything's recovered.
And there in Parc Fermé are the cars that scrutineers require for later on. So, right, Rowbottom's good to go. The board has just fallen over, says go to Parc Fermé. The driver's being reminded of it. Rowbottom released. Ingram arrives. So another front row start. He's not been a race winner yet this year, but he's been ultra consistent. And again, what he's just done to be 31 thousandths shy of pole position with only 3 seconds a lap of boost is mighty impressive. Hugely
impressive. Obviously, we didn't get to see what Sutton could have done as well because he didn't get a lap time in, but massively impressive from both of them in terms of sheer pace. And don't rule Sutton out from tomorrow's results now, just because of that. He still starts 6th.
And will be a very fired up driver indeed. So Tom Ingram's car about to be released. In the background you've got Dan Camish in the queue, ready to go. So yeah, Sutton will be a driver to watch, but as ever there are lots of drivers to watch because this quick 6 qualifying system inevitably now puts people out of position, and it makes race 1 very interesting indeed, that's for sure. The roller ought to be able to go cleanly under the Ford of Dan Camish. No dramas there, all good. The scales put ready for the car to be checked for the regulation weight, and then the car will go to Parc Fermé. So car rocked up. Of course, it has to be driven to Parc Fermé, so the engine has to fire up once the weight is taken. And when all is good, thumbs up, car can be pushed off the scale. And let's head to the pit lane because our top 3 are heading in the direction of Louise.
And I'm heading in the direction of Dan Rowbottom, who seems to be walking in the opposite direction. Come talk to me, Dan. This is one of the joys of being in the top 3 after qualifying. Good result for you.
Feels like a long time. No, it was good. We've had a good day. Came here with a completely different philosophy in the car. It's working so far. So, yeah, it's good.
When you say different philosophy, what have you changed?
I think Paul's thrown the kitchen sink at it. It's a very different car. Having said that, camo's on what we would call the base setup. So that's clearly still good. We're just trying a different route for me. So, yeah, so far so good.
And that's important, isn't it? Because you and I had a conversation off camera last week or last race about the fact that the car just wasn't where you need it to be. And every driver is slightly different. The cars might be the same, but the nuts behind the wheel, as they say, want it to perform differently.
Yeah, I mean, we all need something different. I think what people don't really understand with the British touring car, there's like 30,000 different permutations of suspension and damper setup. So, for sure, yeah, that car's quick for him, but it's not, everyone's different. So we all need a different thing. And I think maybe for a while we followed a single path to try and make it simple for the team. But ultimately, we've got to find something that's good for me, and I think we're getting there.
Nice stuff. Well done. Well done. Let's go and have a word with the guy who is going to be starting on the front row, and who, as you were saying in the commentary, managed to pull an incredible result from a car that really doesn't have the amount of boost available that should have enabled you to do that lap on a track where boost is so critical.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think we were in a really, really good place, and with the car all weekend, to be honest. That it's felt amazing. It's felt really, really nice. So hooked up, and it just allows you to do anything you want to do with it. Honestly, it is beyond a dream to drive. I can't really express it. Incredible result for Dan Cam. He's done a hell of a lap there as well. So yeah, I'm very, very pleased to be where we are. Certainly going to mean tomorrow is going to be a bit of a spicy day. So we'll see. I think we've just timed it right. It's the first. You see what just on my windscreen there? The first few spits of rain started to come in. So we timed it about right, I think.
What are you thinking looking ahead tomorrow? I mean, race 1. Is it just a matter of holding station as much as you can? I mean, obviously you're going to be going for the win, but what do you think the comparative pace is going to be in the slightly higher predicted temperatures?
I think that naturally that'll obviously help with the temperature being up. There's still this sort of lingering chance of a little bit of rain coming in. We can't rule that out at all. So let's wait and see. I mean, fundamentally, we want a day that is full of points. So, we want a pointsy day is what we need. So if we can really get a day that we can be consistent from the start, have the weather on our side so we don't have the chaos of that'll make a big difference. So let's wait and see. Naturally, it's good to have Adam there. Great result for Dan Cam, but yeah, really, really good result for us to be lining up right where we need to be with a lack of TTB. It's quite a nice place to be.
Good stuff. Well done you. We'll see you out there tomorrow. And now we were going to head over and grab a word with the man. I could just see him having a quick word with his dad over here, a guy who I have no doubt whatsoever he'll be very happy with that result. The team will be very happy with that result. But you're the one who's going to have to break it to your wife Libby that she gets another Goodyear Wingfoot Award trophy to polish.
Honey, this one means the world to me, so it's staying out is this bad boy. Yeah, fantastic. They're lovely, aren't they, as well? So I do apologise to Mickey for what I said about the first one from Goodyear. It's lovely to have. After last week, there's not a better way to bounce back, is there, really, than show the team that, we make mistakes, but under us we got a fantastic car. I got an amazing team and a group of people around me, and proud of myself for putting last week behind me and coming out swinging today when it mattered.
When we spoke earlier on, you were talking about the fact that you love qualifying. It brings the best out of you. Just talk us through that session.
I think it does, and I think, I'm not always the best tester. I have to kind of screw myself up to kind of really push in testing, and turn 1's a good example. It's 5th gear, down 1, turn in, back to flat. And we do that on lap 1 with no practice at all. You just got to believe that the rear of this car sticks. And it takes me a while to get there. And by Q3, it's like, Dan, this is going to make or break it. So take your brain out, take a deep breath. And when it goes through and you watch the lap delta just come down by a 10.5, your whole motivation just goes through the roof. And then you just keep taking time then. So, the Q3 time was quite a lot faster than my Q2 time. And I thought I must be in a class of my own there. And then they're like, yeah, by about 300s from Tom. And I was like, what? So, really, really proud of this one. And tomorrow we're going to have a good fight on his hands, aren't we? So.
Great stuff. Well done.
Thank you.
So well done, Dan Camish and Napa Racing UK. So this is the order at the end of qualifying. Dan Camish faster than Tom Ingram for the front row. Dan Rowbottom third ahead of Mikey Doble with Adam Morgan, and a troubled Ash Sutton rounding out the top 6. Troubled even though he's 6 with only 1 second of boost, but the trouble is not the time, it's the electrical gremlin that they now need to trace. Dan Lloyd 7th. He was of course the best of those that didn't progress from Q2. He's ahead of Josh Cook, Tom Chilton and James Dorlin in 10th. 11th is where you find Charles Rainford ahead of Chris Smiley, then Darryl DeLeon with Aidan Moffat 14th. Gordon Shedden is next from Sam Osborne, Aaron Taylor-Smith and Dexter Patterson. It's Max Hall 19th and Jake Hill only 20th. He'll be a man to watch come race day. Stephen Jelly 21st ahead of Ronan Pearson, then Nick Halstead from Nick Hamilton and newcomer Ryan Bensley. That is the order then going into race 1 tomorrow. And we are looking forward to a really busy race day. We're going to be on air from 10:45 on ITV4 tomorrow with, of course, a great day not only of touring car action but supports as well. Carrera Cup GB, Formula 4 and Minis. So we look forward to your company tomorrow from 10:45. But for now, from Louise Goodman, Tim Harvey and David Addison, it's goodbye from Snetterton.